If you are anything like me, you have a rotating set of hobbies that constantly changes throughout the year. I might start off with wargaming, and then I get really into video games, and then it's terrain making and painting. Each interest and hobby only lasting a couple of months before it ultimately burns out to be re-sparked again next year. And despite me thoroughly enjoying it, dungeon mastering is no exception to this phenomena, which is a problem for me if I want to run a campaign that lasts any sort of extended period of time. And I know I'm not the only one with this problem, so I'm going to share with you how I managed to run a campaign that's lasted over 3 years despite my burnout. One reason why I got burned out so easily is because I dived in too deep into each hobby that I went into, to the point where all of my free time was consumed by this hobby. And for dungeon mastering, I would spend 15 plus hours each section terrain making, painting miniatures, and prepping. And for that prep, I would make entire towns, full NPCs with backstories and occupations with their names and all that stuff. And beyond that, I would make dungeon layouts and building layouts that the party could go into and explore. Really just an over-the-top workload for a singular session. For me, I was just so excited to run D&D. However, that excitement was temporary. After about 4 or 5 sessions, the novelty of running D&D kind of wore off a bit. I was essentially left with a part-time job that I didn't get paid for. And that's not to say that I didn't love DMing. It's just my excitement level for DMing didn't match my workload anymore. But I did not stop DMing there. So how did I solve this problem? To do this, I had to look back on how I prepped sessions and try to come up with a better, more efficient way to do that. I forced myself to sacrifice a few things in my usual prep so that I could get my excitement levels and my workload matching. I reused models and terrain pieces, I ran shorter sessions so I didn't have to prep as much each week, and I relied on my improv a good bit more. I let go of that idea that I had to run this perfect game, and the game that I started running with all this work so that I could actually enjoy running D&D again. The second reason why I started to get burnt out was that I was running a game that I didn't want to run. Let me explain. After watching videos and playing D&D and talking with other players, I came under the impression that D&D is meant to be played a certain way in which the players have complete freedom to do whatever they want, and that trying to contain this freedom or mitigate this freedom was a bad thing and we should avoid that at all costs. This led me to run a sandbox style world and campaign in which the players could do anything they wanted and I would have something prepped for them to do. This process of building out an entire world and entire towns that the players could run free in was fun and exciting at first, but quickly grew tedious. This was only compounded by so much of my prep being wasted for trying to make the world feel as alive as possible. Half of my prep was just set pieces that the players might interact with, but ultimately never really did. I would build out entire sections of towns, entire districts, and come up with quests that the players never even interacted with. Beyond that, my players didn't even seem interested in exploring anything outside of the main plotline or their character's plotline. This sandbox style campaign left me frustrated and just wasn't working for me, so I switched over to running a narrative style campaign. Once I did this, prepping became so much more fun for me again. I've always preferred the cooperative storytelling and the roleplay aspects of D&D, so running Dungeons and Dragons this way felt a lot more natural to me. When I first started this campaign, I should have spent more time thinking about what type of campaign that I want to run and that I found fun before I really burnt myself out running something that I didn't enjoy at all. If I did that, I would have been a lot more resistant to burnout from the start. The last trick that I used to avoid burnout was to stop playing. Now, this seems a little counterintuitive. Isn't the whole point of avoiding burnout to continue playing D&D? Well, yes, but no. In my opinion, the whole point of avoiding burnout is to continue enjoying playing D&D. Besides, there's more to this tip than just saying you should stop playing. Hear me out. When I say I stopped playing D&D, these weren't random points of the campaign that I just picked out because I didn't feel like prepping anymore. Instead, I picked key moments within the narrative of the campaign that could split it up into major acts, and at the end of each act being major character moments and epic final bosses for the players to fight. Each of these were 10 to 15 sessions long, and I had a couple of months in between so I could prep for each act. Not only did this allow me to take the game at my own pace, but it allowed me to ensure the quality of each of my sessions. Within these breaks, it allowed me to get excited and worked up again about running D&D. The one thing that you have to worry about though is stopping D&D, but never starting back up again. To avoid this, make a concrete time frame for each break. 1 month, 3 months, half a year, maybe even a full year if you need it. Whatever will get you back into that DMing groove. Ever since I've been able to utilize these tips for myself, I've been able to avoid burnout a lot easier and manage to run this 3-year-long campaign. I hope you enjoyed this video on DM burnout and how to avoid it. I also have a web series on how to create a D&D world and campaign from scratch, so give that a watch if you're interested. If you want to make physical terrain for your D&D table, I also have a few videos on that. With all of that out of the way, bye for now.